Okay, so this is the first episode of a series that I'm doing, um, and I have I have notes to keep me on track because I don't want to go off on a tangent. But it's called Fallen World, and it's basically about the importance of stopping and questioning things. Because I feel like people sort of move really fast and don't really take the time to stop and ask themselves why they're moving or where they're going and why they're really going there. People don't think that far or think that deep. So, philosophers are usually doing the opposite. They're always questioning things, and I want to start by talking about like moral philosophy. So the first chapter that I have is called Understanding Science and Morality. And the basically science, a lot of people use science. I don't know if a lot of people do this, but a lot of people think of science as sort of just a home of all the answers or the truth. But science is really just a means to an end. It's like, you use it to figure things out and to get answers, but science itself isn't the answers. And if you just take all of the things that are scientifically proven as facts, you're not going to be able to get every philosophical question you've ever had answered. It's not going to make everything make sense. So it's basically science on its own is not the answers to everything. And morality is just something that we use to help ourselves understand what is and isn't right, but I would just call it a social construct because without morality, a society would just sort of fall apart. So morality is basically the glue that keeps us from just attacking each other. So I hope I'm making sense. I, this is my first time doing this, so I am a little bit nervous, to be honest, but that's what the notes are for. So just bear with me. I think that if you use facts and science as your argument for anything, you're probably being a little bit too narrow-minded, and you're not gonna learn anything if you start at the end. If you say this is the conclusion that I want to prove, and then you start trying to prove it, because there's got to be some emotional stake in that outcome. You're feeling like you want it to be something specific because if it's I'm sorry if I'm not making sense. I'm picturing it in my head as I'm saying it, and then I hear myself and realize it doesn't make as much sense as I think it does. I'm just gonna I'm gonna just start over. When you start at the end of the argument, you picture it, you say this is the point that I want to make, and you start making it, and you're not curious. So what I have written down is curiosity is the only way to truly learn, because I think if you are curious, you're not afraid. You're just saying, I wonder what this is in my free time. But if you feel like your life depends on it, then you're not curious, you're just afraid. And fear is not going to be logical. Fear is going to be sort of reactionary and emotional, and it's not the best way to learn. So you just have to be curious and open to possibilities. And in order to do that, you need to understand the difference between a possibility and something that's definitely not true. Um, and most things are possible. I think one of the only things that is definitely impossible would be changing the past. And I'm going to probably do another class. I'm going to definitely do another class on that because I'm calling it a class because that's what it feels like to me. But it's an episode, it's a series, it's a podcast, whatever you want to call it. But changing the past, I'll probably call that one time travel because that's a whole interesting topic. But it's it's you're not going to get anywhere if you're just thinking that you already know how everything works. And we do know a lot of things. There's things that are and aren't possible, but a lot of people throw things into the not possible category without actually having a good enough reason to do it. It's more of an emotional reason, it's just to fit their point. And these people are usually very hard to argue with because there's no logic involved in anything they're saying. It's emotional. And the reality of it is, a lot of things that we think are impossible are actually not impossible. So then I think that covers everything that I had under the first chapter. Understanding Science and Morality. So the second chapter, If There Was Nothing. This is an interesting theory. I wouldn't call it a theory, it's just an interesting train of thought. So basically, imagine that everything that exists now has always existed, but just in a different form. So if you can picture a time when nothing existed, what does nothing look like? Is it white? Is it black? Well, that would still be something. White is still a thing, black is still a thing. So what is it, clear? Okay, well, if it's clear, then you'd have to be seeing through it to the other side. You'd have to see something. So it's not possible to see nothing. It's not possible to even imagine what it would look like or what it would be, because nothing is just the absence of something. So, if I haven't lost you by this point, I don't think that there is any such thing as nothing. I don't think nothing is even possible, because something can't come from nothing. And obviously, we can all agree everything around us is something. Even if you travel the universe far and wide, you're never going to find the absence of something. There's something everywhere, even if you can't see it, even if it's undetectable or immeasurable. That doesn't mean it's not there. That doesn't mean it's nothing. So if you think that everything that exists now didn't always exist, then you're implying that there was a time when nothing existed. And if there was a time when nothing existed, nothing would have been able to be born from it. Nothing that exists now would be able to exist if there was a time when nothing existed, because nothing can't do anything. It can't create a universe or it can't create a thing. It's nothing. And following that same logic, I think it also makes sense to assume that something can't be turned into nothing. Something can't just stop existing. So when you think about death of an object, like if you blow a bubble and the bubble pops, did the bubble die? Does the bubble not exist anymore? Well, the bubble doesn't exist anymore as a bubble, but that doesn't mean that what the bubble was made of stopped existing. Now it's a puddle on the ground, and the air inside it still exists. It's just part of the air around it now. There's no bubble to trap it. So it still exists, and I'd be surprised if you found a way to prove that something can stop existing. But I believe that everything is just energy. I think that everything that exists is just energy, and that kind of depends on your perspective, because it seems physical, and that's not to say it isn't. It's either all physical or it's all energy, but it's all the same thing either way. And it doesn't really matter if you believe in anything. I don't care if you're religious or an atheist or whatever. We have to agree that if we don't stop agreeing to disagree, if we all just live in a world where everybody just says, well, let's agree to disagree, we're going to live in a world where people are constantly fighting and nobody's on the same page, and then everything's just going to fall apart, which is kind of what's already happened, which is why I want to do this, because it's just, you can't just continue that. That's not okay. It's not going anywhere, and we're not going anywhere at that rate. So we need to agree, and we need to focus on the things that we all can agree on, like the fact that, th- this is a hand. We can all agree on that, I think, but we can't agree on what hands are supposed to do, if that makes sense. So whether you believe in like energy, or if you're a physicalist or spiritualist or religious or whatever, it doesn't matter. You need to understand that it's all the same thing, and you're really just, by my beliefs, everything is energy, and you're either tapping into a higher vibration or a lower vibration, because the energy is just that's all it is. It's like just vibrations, high and low, and everything that exists around you is just part of that. It's just a manifestation of that. And you're either tapped into the higher vibration or the lower vibration. Those are the only two options. So a lot of people don't see the world that way. People kind of make up their own morality based on what they're told. And I don't like when people listen to something and don't question it. Even me, I want you to question what I'm saying. I want you to leave comments and ask me questions. I don't want you to just hear what I'm saying and say, wow, he knows what he's talking about. Because I don't. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm observing the world and I'm questioning and I'm thinking and I'm sharing what I've thought about. And I want you to question everything too. And I just want you to understand that we can't just stop thinking. We can't just say, okay, this is the answer. Let's just start living like this from now on. Because then you've stopped growing. It's like a hamster on a wheel. You're not going anywhere. So the third chapter is called Why It Matters. And this is basically why does it matter to think about this type of stuff, this topic? Why does it matter? Does anything matter? Like, if you just live your whole life like it doesn't matter and you're just going to die anyway, what's the point of anything? Stuff like that. There is a reason. I think that, regardless of what you believe in, you have to acknowledge that things function the way that they do for a reason. Like a system, a machine. Imagine that everything is a machine and that all the parts that the machine is made of have to know their role in order to keep the machine working. And think of the galaxy. Think of the planets, going and rotating and doing all of this stuff. Everything kind of works in a specific way. Think about how the sun is just the right distance from the Earth to, keep us from freezing or melting. If all of a sudden everything started going haywire, everything would just fall apart. And, we as a species cannot just say that it doesn't matter our actions. But this is the thing, if you do decide that, you have to expect that you're going to get kicked out of a society, because a society, a group of people, a village, cannot function if there are people in the village who think that nothing they do matters and that they can just do whatever they want to anybody they want and there will be no consequences. The reality of it is that there's consequences for everything you do. You can't, throw a rock into an ocean without causing a ripple effect. And then, everything you do has an output. You do something and then there's a reaction in the universe. So if you think that, obviously we all understand that, but if you think that that doesn't matter, that's fine. Just get out, because you can't expect to be part of a society when you think your actions don't matter. So, let's see what I have written here. I have morality should be defined by how well we work together. I think that that's a pretty good way to explain it, is that people have a hard time understanding morals. They think that it's connected to religion or beliefs, or if there's a God, or if there's somebody judging you. And then we just chalk it up to, well, God knows everything and just let God decide what's right and wrong. But what's right and wrong should be based on the outcome. And if we have a village where everybody has a different idea of what's right and wrong, and everybody's doing their own thing based on what they heard from some person who claimed to know God, then everybody's going to have a different idea of what they're doing. And then you look at the result, everything's just falling apart and burning down. So morality should be defined by the results. If a system works together, if we focus on how our actions affect the world around us, instead of just kind of mindlessly going day by day. I have to get up, I have to go to work, I have to do this, I have to do that. You don't ever stop and say, wait, why am I doing this? What is it for? And I understand that mentality, but it's not healthy, and it's not, you're not really there. I mean, can you really say that you're living like that and you feel like you're getting the most that you can out of life? I mean, how can you even enjoy that? But the problem is that we've kind of created a whole society of people who all sort of think like that, which is why it hasn't completely fallen apart, because we've rearranged our values, which, brings up another interesting point is that if everybody is on the same page, even if it's maybe a more destructive page, will the society still stand? And I think the answer is no, because even though it may work for a while, it's eventually going to collapse when people start to realize that they're not even getting as much as they could be, that things are not going well. And that's what's starting to happen this year. Because something like this, the whole quarantine, it was kind of inevitable. Something like this could have always happened, even though it didn't until now. But, similar things have happened in the past, but not to this scale. This has not only, been a disease spreading around, but this has forced a lot of people into some weird mentalities, and it's like being locked away with yourself, the way that we kind of escape our lives. This year, people have kind of been forced to stop doing that. So I'm just trying to play into that and give you something to think about. And I've been thinking a lot this year. I always have, but this year especially, I've learned a lot. And I think that it's kind of inevitable that things are going to just get a lot worse if people don't start acknowledging how important it is to stop and question everything. So, personally, I think that the way that you treat other people, I think if you think that money or getting a good job is what matters the most, I have to ask you, what are you doing that for? Originally, you do that because you think that getting money will mean that you'll be able to put a roof over your head and food on the table and take care of yourself and take care of your family. Okay, well, why does that matter? Because without a family, maybe you'll be alone and you'll be less likely to survive in nature. It's all connected to survival, and you have a family because of keeping the species alive. If you really look at it, everything comes down to survival. So you have to be able to pay attention to the difference between when you're listening to your survival instincts and when you're actually thinking and not just reacting to your instincts, which are there to keep you alive because you are supposed to be here, whether we agree on why we're here or not. We are supposed to be here. Otherwise, we would, you know, why would we bother? Because I think we should all be able to agree life is not easy. It's not easy to survive on this planet. Every day, there's something else that just makes it a little bit more challenging. So if you're here, you have to think that there must be some reason for it. Otherwise, there's just no point. Even if you think the only reason is just to play your role, like everything. But nothing really dies. So whether you're a physicalist, if you believe that we're just our bodies, like super advanced robots, then even when you die, you're still going to decompose and just go back into the earth unless you're trapped in a coffin, which is a whole other topic. But there's a lot of things that I could say, which is why this is a series and it's not just one video. But it you know or if you believe that there is something that we're more than our bodies, like what I believe about energy, and that we're just energy, either way, you're going to continue to live after your death. And, you know, even scientists don't have an explanation for consciousness. And you people come up with different stuff, but it's nobody really knows. It's kind of hard to explain consciousness without admitting that you're a little bit more than just your body. But either way, it doesn't. I don't care what you believe. It doesn't make a difference because either way, you should still be doing the same thing. You should still be focusing on how your actions affect the world around you. And if you just believe that you're supposed to just do whatever you want, then don't expect people to welcome you into their society. And that's all you can really ask for. That's kind of what we do, the way that we lock people in prison for doing certain things and for showing that they don't think their actions matter. But we do it on too big of a scale and with too complex of a system to really get down to the core issue. We think if you murder someone, then you should be locked away, or if you steal something. But we don't really think about when people do little things that show that they don't care about their actions. Little things like just, showing that they're behaving from a place of fear and emotion, reactionary. And this can create an ego problem, which is what I'm going to talk about in the next episode. Because The last thing that I have written in my notes is only fear can convince you that something matters more than love. And the point that I wanted to make there with everything I was saying about feeding your family is that everything that we do, everything that we value comes, down to just being able to relax at the end of the day. You work so you can come home and still have a house and still have things to enjoy yourself and take care of the people you love. But if you think that only your own happiness matters, can you really be happy if nobody likes you because you don't treat other people well? You don't treat people the way you would want them to treat you. And you can lie to yourself all you want, but eh. Oh, somebody just said, I don't know what this is, but his voice is relaxing. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know what this is either. This is my first episode, so hopefully it'll pick up and then it'll become more of a comfortable thing for everybody. But yeah, I'm almost done here. I wanted to keep it under 25 minutes. So I think that it's just important to think about that, to think about what really matters and why it matters. And that's really all I can ask. That's just what this episode is about. So it's called The Meaning of Life, just because I think that that's sort of what I want you to think about. It's not really me telling you what the meaning of life is. It's just I want to encourage you to think about it and consider everything that I'm talking about because I don't think enough people think. And I think that's causing a problem. So, yeah, that's really all I can say for now. We're going to talk about ego and all of the different aspects of that in the next episode, which is next week at the same time. I'm doing this every Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern time from now on, except for the Sunday after that on December 13th because I have an appointment. So I'm going to have to do that one at 5, but mostly it'll be at 4 p.m. So basically, just to give you a little idea of what the next episode is going to be, it, fear and ego and control are all kind of the same thing because you when you try to control something, it's because you're afraid that if you don't have control over it, it'll fall apart. It's because you think that you can't be trusting that it'll be taken care of unless you step into that role of control and you do it yourself. And that is a little bit egotistical because you're sort of stepping into a king, a god role and saying, this is mine to take care of, this is mine to organize. People who get really out of control with this become like super manipulative. But then it's just on a smaller scale, it's people who just don't really put that much thought into it. They're just reactionary and they haven't become complete sociopaths yet. But it's just that's just the direction that you're going to be headed. So it's important to think about. It's important not to start down that path. And I'm going to elaborate on that in the next one. So hopefully this was good. I don't know. It was my first time, as I've said a couple times now, but uh yeah, I think I went over everything I wrote down in my notes, so I'm good. 23 minutes. I did it. I was worried this was going to be longer, but I actually got everything covered. Okay, see you next week.